There are increased precautions in place right now in the wake of a shooting incident in the downtown Streeterville neighborhood last night. A tourist was shot as she was walking with her son on her way back to her hotel.
A few moments later.
Is the city concerned about tourism
No.
coming? Okay.
We're not going to change our values simply because the president is jealous. He's jealous. He's jealous of Chicago.
And we are back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, please, people. You know, it helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us. Now, y'all know we've been following your boy. This is your boy, Brandon Johnson, Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago. We've been following him for a number of weeks now. And the reason why is simple. His city, under its welcoming city policy, decided that it's going to spend all its money on the migrants who came into the country without federal permission. He's going to spend all his money on those people instead of spending his money on his residents, his citizens. You know, the teens who are going crazy right now, the people who are homeless, the people whose education is in jeopardy, people who are losing their jobs, roads, you get the picture, right? So that's the reason we're talking about Brandon Johnson and Chicago. Now today, the good thing about Brandon Johnson is this guy, he does get out there. He answers questions. He is front and center. The problem is he's just not a very capable politician, right? So he's trying, but Chicago, forgive me, I'm not laughing at y'all, but your mayor is just comedy gold, y'all. I mean, I just sit back and have a good chuckle watching this guy, giving his best shot. He's really trying. I know some people were upset with me for saying that previously. This guy's trying. He's just not good at it. So anyway, y'all, today he had a press conference, and we're going to be tying up a lot of loose ends today, particularly the $175 million payment that he said the CEO had given his word that they were going to reimburse Chicago the $175 million. Well, that didn't happen. You kind of knew it wasn't going to happen, right? Well, let's take a look at how he answers that question. Spoiler alert, he doesn't answer. But you know what, people? I'm going to pull an audible. I was editing this video, but you know what? I decided to put a little bit of a spicy clip in before we get into some of this other stuff. So let's get into kind of a tense back and forth first. I'm going to throw that out there for y'all, for my regular watchers, my regular viewers. We'll get into that, and then we'll go into the $175 million and the tourism question and all the other stuff. Let's get into some spice. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
Mayor Johnson, for the second...
You moved seats there. Apparently you were very eager to ask a question. Now you got to get to it quickly, okay?
Well, the people of Chicago are asking me to ask you
So
a
go ahead
couple
and
of
ask it.
questions.
Go for it.
Every single reporter here asked 3 questions, and you didn't interrupt any of them, by the way. For the second week in a row, we had mobs of violent black teenagers descending on not only residents, attacking police, attacking businesses, shooting at people, obviously the shoplifting, property damage. And you weren't even in Chicago. You were out campaigning for another unpopular mayor in St. Louis, where your wife Stacy is from. And
you need the question.
People are asking me to ask you, to add insult to injury, the very next night, not even 24 hours later, you held a campaign kickoff fundraiser. How could you possibly think that this is the right time to kick off your re-election campaign? And
Thank you.
People are asking me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Citizens are asking.
So your question is about me, about my re-election. So first of all, here's what I'm focused in on. It's creating more opportunities for people to afford to live in this city. As you have seen today, my administration has moved with a great deal of expediency, transparency, and boldness to build more affordable homes, because there's the pathway to sustain our communities and to make sure that they're safe. Here's what we're also committed to doing, is to ensuring that there is a workforce that is stabilized in this city so that we can continue to grow our economy. You know, the most important thing for the people of Chicago to know, the most important thing that they need to know, is that I'm focusing on people. That's what my focus has been on. And whether that's building more affordable homes, ensuring that our workforce is stabilized, investing in our young people, expanding mental and behavioral health, these are the things that the people of Chicago want. They want their schools to be fully supported. We've done that. They want their communities to be affordable. We're doing that. They want to make sure that our communities are getting safer. 25% reduction in violent crime just this year alone. And so we're going to continue to do that work throughout my term here. And then when it's time for us to make that announcement around what our vision is for the next 4 years, we'll make sure that you get an invitation.
Well, we got to keep moving. We got to keep moving.
The people who have actually invested in real businesses in downtown are saying that you're destroying their investments. Real residents.
Is there a question?
Invested in
All right, we got to keep moving. I'm sorry.
are saying that you're destroying
We can't do
their
this.
investment. How is it possible that someone like yourself doesn't seem to understand the actual definition of the word investment?
Yeah.
All right,
We're
go to
investing
Mariah.
in people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to Mariah.
Hi, Mayor. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Can you speak directly to the Chicago taxpayer, and you've spoken to this a bit already this morning, about how the city will afford the new teacher's contract and the $175 million pension payment?
Just a warning, y'all. He's going to say a lot of mumbo jumbo, but he's not going to answer the question.
The contract is paid for through a separate entity of government, the Chicago Public Schools. And that, in part, is the responsibility of the CEO to be able to come up with mechanisms to be able to satisfy that. Just like when I passed my budget, I spoke specifically of how we're going to pay for our raises for our police officers. We're even projecting, how we'll pay for raises for our firefighters and all of our city workers. These are what budgets ultimately do. There's enough revenue that we have generated from our public schools that allows for this contract to be settled. And what's also important here is, because this is the question that I know that taxpayers ask, what are they getting in their public school system? So if you will indulge me for a second, can I tell you what the taxpayers are getting? Okay, so we're getting up to 70 more sustainable community schools, which is a model that has proven to work better than school privatization and turnarounds, which cost the taxpayers, right? We're also reducing class sizes, where there are very clear instructional outcomes that benefit all of the taxpayers when children are in classrooms that are smaller. And I know that personally as a public school teacher. Here's what we're also getting. We're actually protecting
So yeah, y'all, he keeps going on with the mumbo jumbo for quite some time. I'm going to spare you all of that. We're just going to skip back to the reporter because he never did answer her. Like, see, a crafty politician would be able to deflect, right? And the reporter might get lost and think that maybe they did get an answer, or they'll understand that the politician is not going to give an answer, so they'll continue. That's what would happen with a crafty, with like a real crafty politician. In this situation, no, he just the reporter just circles back around and says, okay, well, can you answer the question, please, sir? Do y'all think he's going to answer the second time? Let's take a look.
It's very apparent and transparent. The largest TIF surplus in the history of Chicago. As indicated, we have established over $1 billion of just structural support for the school district. I'm not going to let this school district fail.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. The pension payment falls back to CEO Martinez, but ultimately he answers to you, right?
Well, he should. But regardless of whether or not he should or should not, here's what we do know. The contract matches the value system of our city. It does. Just like the contract for our police officers.
All right, so it should be clear that he's not going to answer anything about the $175 million. That's just money that y'all are not going to get back, Chicago, okay? So like we said in previous videos, they spent all the money on the migrants, and now there's another $175 million that y'all just aren't going to get back. He's not going to tell you that straight up. He's not going to just come clean, right? He's talking about the police. Now he's talking about police officers, y'all. When the question is about the $175 million reimbursement, he's talking about police officer paying. Just not a very good politician.
On that $175 million non-reimbursement for the MEABF, I know there was a letter your finance team sent out to alders. I didn't quite understand. Basically saying to plug that hole, you'd be sort of monitoring revenues and expenses. Perhaps revenues come in over projections. Is that how you plan to balance the current fiscal year's budget, given that $175 million, or can you just explain to me how this budget will be in balance now?
Annette.
Sure. So I think I want to remove the notion of balanced budgets. You balance a budget when you pass a budget. You monitor your budget throughout the year to ensure your revenues are coming in as you projected, and that if they're not, that you are mitigating that by lowering your expenditures. Last year, we forecasted the non-receipt of the MEABF payment in our forecast, and so we took measures to reduce our expenditures in the chance that those that the agreement couldn't be struck with the Board of Education. So we took those measures last year, and so what we're doing now is reconciling the end of the year to see how the rest of our revenues came in and the rest of our expenditures came in, and that report will be due in June.
Okay, so she just wants to remove the notion of a balanced budget altogether, all right? So what about tourism, y'all? Let's go to something that maybe they can get right, okay? Like you saw in the coming up clip, maybe they can get tourism right, because, I mean, they're not trying to balance the budget. They're monitoring the budget. They're like looking at it. They're like, hey, there's the budget over there. Okay, there it went. It was behind. We had a budget previously, so now they're just looking at it from afar. Let's go to tourism and see what they have to say about that.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
We're going to pivot to tourism now.
And now to a developing story. There are increased precautions in place right now in the wake of a shooting incident in the downtown Streeterville neighborhood last night. A tourist was shot as she was walking with her son on her way back to her hotel. Charlie Wojciechowski's live for us now with what the city's doing. Charlie.
Well, Marion, we have good news first about that shooting victim. She has reportedly been treated and released from Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Her injuries were superficial, but there is concern here in this area, which is only steps from Navy Pier, about the possibilities for summer violence. This afternoon, Chicago police stand guard outside the AMC theaters, the Whole Foods, and the Walgreens, part of a stepped-up police presence in response to a shooting last night here outside the AMC River East theaters in Streeterville.
Our units, we're getting that person shot as bona fide at Lower Columbus Drive.
One young man took a gun out of his backpack. That was the gun that was used to fire at least 5, possibly 6 rounds. One of the rounds, unfortunately, struck a 46-year-old female tourist who was here visiting from Connecticut. She was treated and released at Northwestern Hospital, so her condition is good.
Alderman Brian Hopkins says much of what happened was captured on the movie theater's surveillance cameras.
We know the incident started indoors. Security kicked the teens out because they were acting unruly, and once they got outside, the violence escalated.
Violence that is troubling to the people who live in this neighborhood, only steps from Navy Pier.
Are you concerned how or if the Trump administration actions or worries about deportations might affect tourism? Is that something you guys have talked about?
That's a good question. Are there legitimate concerns around the type of fear and intimidation that this administration is trying to bestow upon the city of Chicago? We're aware of it. We're not going to flinch, though. The city of Chicago is one of the top destinations in the world for corporate relocation 13 years in a row. The best big city in America 8 years in a row. The most diverse economy. Having a beautiful landscape in, downtown. Our world's fresh water, again, the diversity of our economy. Our sports teams are playing pretty well right now. I give a special shout out to Giddy. We got to figure out how to keep him here and keep those averages going up. Look, and with all that being said, because the city of Chicago has been such a welcoming destination, we're not going to change our values simply because the president is jealous. He's jealous. He's jealous of Chicago. He wished he had an opportunity to run one of the most remarkable destinations on the planet. Unfortunately, he's stuck in D.C. right now, but we're going to do something about that in a few years.
I don't want this to be my second question, but is the city concerned about tourism
No.
coming? Okay.
So there you have it, y'all. There you have it. President Trump is jealous of him because he's the mayor of Chicago, and President Trump is only the president of the entire country. He's not worried at all about tourism while his tourists get shot. And the $175 million that someone told him with that person's word that they would give to Chicago, they didn't give it to him. But no worries. Chicago is not even talking in terms of balancing the budget. They're talking about, hey, look at that budget. We're going to monitor it. So there you have it, people of Chicago. I know I'm being sarcastic and cynical here, y'all, but this guy has a 6.6% approval rating. And again, if you were to go back and you were to take those hundreds and hundreds, $600, $700, $800 million that the city spent on the migrants and spend that on the people of Chicago, where would y'all be now? You know, if you were to go back several years of that, where would you be today? Let me know in the comments, y'all. Thank y'all for watching. But before you do, please stop, hit the share button, share this video out. Put in somebody's email, text message, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or put them all in and send out the video to your loved ones. Also, if you are not a subscriber, please do subscribe. Thank y'all for watching. Love y'all, and we'll see you back in the next one.